Hello to everyone watching at home. My name is Bryant Francis. I am a contributing editor at Gamasutra, and I am down here in the left-hand corner, finally making my appearance on this stream. He says, having made several appearances on this stream. But over on this end of the camera, can see three other wonderful faces from Gamasutra. Chris, Alyssa, and Alex, would you please introduce yourselves in that order?
Hi, I'm Chris Graft, editor-in-chief of Gamasutra, and fresh off of E3. Fresh in air quotes.
I'm Alyssa Macklin. I'm a contributing editor, and I've been watching everything comfortably from my air-conditioned apartment all week.
I'm Alex Waro, an editor at Gamasutra, and currently a vessel for the embodied spirit of Mario.
Oh.
Oh,
I forgot the hat. Damn, I don't have the mustache. What am I doing? I'm sorry.
Blessings upon you, sir. Are we joined by a holy figure today? I don't know. Okay, so we are here to talk about a little thing that's happened that Chris was trapped at, called the Jeff Sessions here. No, E3.
Yeah,
we're here to talk about E3.
Yeah.
Why are we here to talk about E3, Chris? Why should we even talk? Like, it's E3. It's a thing. Games happen.
It is the biggest event. Like, I don't know if it's an industry event anymore. I don't know. There's so many questions about E3 I have now. But yeah, E3 has been going on for a couple decades now or something.
How many have you been
It was
to?
actually my 11th E3.
And you answered
I've been to 11. Yeah.
Yeah.
My first one was in, if you do the math, my first one was in 2006. And that was when I was, I finally went from part-time contract to full-time contract game journalism, working for a site called Next Gen. And I was on the E3 show daily. And if there was any good way to do trial by fire for a game journalist, is to make them work on the E3 show daily for their first E3. But yeah, it's a large event still.
Yeah. Alyssa, Alex, how many E3s have you been to?
One.
After you, Alyssa.
Yeah, no, I went to, I think 3 years ago, I went to one and didn't sleep a lot, drank a little bit, and wrote a ton. But no, it was a really interesting experience. It's very different from other conventions that you'll cover as a journalist, too. It's it used to be business focused, but I feel like this year there's been a little bit more of a shift towards consumer eye.
Yeah. I'm going to ask a question for everyone first before we start sharing our thoughts, our best and worst. What do you think in your mind the purpose of E3 is, or at least maybe what were you thinking it was before this year? Because like you said, we have a lot of questions.
Well, just to rewind a bit, Alex, how many have you gone to? Because I'm curious.
I was trying to remember. That's why I'm kind of glad we moved on. I've been going off and on since 2011, but I skip years sometimes because I'm just not feeling it. And my Junes are usually kind of busy, so I feel like I've been 4 or 5. I didn't go this year. I went last year. Didn't go the year before that. I don't know. Really.
And Brian, yeah, okay. We have maybe around 5, possibly. Alex isn't sure if he's actually been to E3 at all. Brian, how many have you been to? Because you're in LA, so...
I've been to 4 E3s. I started coming right after I got out here in 2012. And this was the first year I missed it because I just had other things I needed to work on. Because Gamasutra is a sister organization of GDC, both owned by UBM Americas. So yeah, 4 E3s. And now I'm going to aggressively yank it back to my first to the question. What is the purpose of E3? Why do we all care?
Well,
Whoa.
I can start.
Yeah,
please.
go for it, Chris. Go in order of years.
So it's interesting because it was established as like in the 90s as a retail event. Like a retail-centric event back when there wasn't digital distribution. So it was where people would make deals, publishers would get in contact with retailers, and they would sort out their inventory for, say, the holiday season. So it's kind of like like game makers are making their pitches to retailers. So there's always been like that, and of course that included like Electronic Arts, Activision, companies that are still around now, and companies that aren't around anymore. It is just a place for people to showcase their wares. And of course there is kind of there's always been like this exciting kind of like fan based thing on it, but it had been an industry event. So yeah, over the years it just I noted this in a little roundtable that we have on Gamasutra right now, but in recent years, with more games being digitally downloaded, not even recent years, the retail aspect it feels like there's remnants of that, but that's not really what it's about. Because publishers don't really necessarily need to go to E3. I think that E3 now is just kind of supposed to be a gigantic celebration of video games made by companies that pay the ESA to be part of the ESA. Yeah, I'm kind of stumbling over this question because I think that even the ESA is trying to figure out what it's doing. So I can tell you, like, ESA's value is just the scale of it. I think it gets it gets people talking about video games for a week. Now this year they let in 15,000 paid fans. So in recent years I feel like they were lowering the barrier for for press qualifications. So you'll have Gamasutra there, and you'll also have, GameButts.org coming in there as well. So you have a lot of people like running sites that are really just there to kind of, I feel like, to pad the attendance base. And then now it's, if they're trying to get more fans involved. So E3 right now, I'm kind of rambling, but E3 right now is trying to serve two masters, industry and fans. I don't think that's really sustainable, at least not in the state of E3 2017. Like, they didn't really make any extra accommodations for the extra traffic. They don't seem to have really made noticeable, I'm talking about on the expo floor, like other arrangements for these 15,000 fans that are coming in. It's just, we're taking the industry event and lumping everybody in together. Taking an industry event and throwing in 15,000 fans. I don't know how you get business done. It's hard to get any reporting done. And I don't know, maybe it's, I wish that I had time to just go around and ask fans what they think of it. Because there's the lines are long and all that. So anyway, ESA is basically trying to transition, I feel like, into Comic-Con, but they're also trying to stay relevant as an industry-focused event where people can network. And E3 2017 is just this really awkward transition phase, I think, towards a more fan-based event.
Yeah, it feels like it feels like PAX kind of ate their lunch, right? Like, so much of what E3 used to be is sort of tied up in this event circuit that's sprung up in games in the last, I don't know, decade or something, to the point now where you talk to developers and they are, sometimes they're just constantly moving from event to event. They have a build, they take it to PAX West, they get some feedback, they get some press, that then they pack it up and go somewhere else, and then, in the summer they have Gamescom and E3 and a couple other things. I guess I have all my dates all wrong, but it feels like there are so many events now that E3's importance is diminishing, and as more publishers kind of realize they can do their own events around E3 and not have to pay for floor space, it feels like they're trying to pull more of a, like you said, a Comic-Con model or PAX model, or really, if they can do it, a Gamescom model, right? It's been done in Germany for years to some effect. Gamescom is huge. There's a business day you can like a dedicated business day that you can actually work during, and it's not too bad. So I feel like if they can move through this growing pain phase and like get to a Gamescom level state, it feels like it could be viable again, but it doesn't seem like it's like a great spot to work or play right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's something I was talking to some developers out there about. Like, right, I mean, it's not just me saying this, by the way. When I talk to developers and I ask them like, how's like, what do you think of E3 this year? Really, it's just like, I don't know how to network here. I don't know how to get in contact with people. Of course, you're going to set up meetings and things like that, but there's not going to be any kind of, oh, like I'm going to talk to like the, you don't know who's there just screwing around necessarily, versus like people who are actually valuable contacts. And just the scope of it too. There's, if you have any level of anxiety, like people won't be able to just like to walk up to somebody. I mean, we had a guy, I think it was his first E3, and he was he was coming out of like crypto something out of the U.S. Navy, and he's trying to first E3 get into game development, make some contacts, and he was sitting at like across from me at lunch, and I was talking to one of my colleagues, and he was just saying, yeah, it must be nice to be able to actually like talk to somebody. And then I was like, well, I mean, we're like journalists too, so this is what we do. We just walk up to people and annoy them. So, and here's a good place where you can do that too. So we told them about like an area at E3 where you like, there's business people walking in and out all the time, and industry folks. So it was like, like just hang out there and have some business cards ready, and you can try to do that. You could maybe make a contact, find some valuable networking, doing something like that. But yeah, it's just difficult when there is no business day. So back to the point that you were making, I think that a lot of this could be solved by just following the Gamescom and TGS model, where you have 1 or 2 business days, and you have the floor, and you're just like, there's still a ton of people at those business days, yep. But that they're just not some rando, and you can actually walk and get to places. So it was just awkward, like this E3, as far as what's the purpose. But I'm sure that the ESA is thinking about all this stuff, probably. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was going to ask, real quick, what did you make of the fact that E3 kind of this year super started like on Saturday, essentially? Like you have an event that
right.
where much of what we were covering was happening the days before. Alyssa, especially you, I'm curious what you made of the fact that most of the news you were writing wasn't even on the days of the expo itself. It was all the way back to Saturday.
It's weird to come in, like, log in on a Monday and have, like, a backlog of things that happened over the weekend, because usually there's, like, this dead zone right there. But, yeah, no, it was weird, like, keeping up with stuff on the weekends, too, and just knowing that, like, I had friends who had been working their 9 to 5, and then they would fly out and work all weekend and then continue to cover on, the week of. I don't know, it's just a weird pacing, and I feel like it starts earlier and earlier every year, too, because it just maybe it's a feeling, but...
No, it's not just a feeling. Yeah, it's they're trying to cram more and more into pre E3. So I think that Saturday, that this year might have been like the earliest that it started as far as major publisher. Good.
Yeah, I mean,
it could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure like there hasn't been a major publisher like EA doing something at noon on Saturday before E3.
Yeah, and like the big change was that this is the first year that Microsoft moved out of its slot on Monday morning at the Galen Center and moved back, I feel like, to Sunday, and that's kind of a huge deal because I don't know how seriously those companies take it, but traditionally, like, Microsoft has had to go like first and then get kind of like usurped by in the hype cycle by Sony that evening, right? Because Sony has their thing at 6 p.m. on Monday, every year since I've been going. This time, Microsoft got its own day. Like, I feel like it was up against Bethesda, but it had its own like platform holder day to itself, separate from Sony, separate from Nintendo, and it was able to move out of the ESA's slot, right? And like, I don't think anybody took that slot, so I kind of wonder next year if Sony or Nintendo will do the same and like also leapfrog back to Sunday or to Saturday even, which would be really great. That would be awesome. I'd love that.
Would you, Alex? Would you really love that?
Why not just do it on Friday night? You know, everybody just gets off work, kicks back.
I'm gonna talk. Let's pivot to the press conferences for a minute, because I feel like we sort of this is where the things that we covered all week were broadly announced. Like Xbox talked about the Xbox One X. Sony
Xbox Wonks. Xbox Wonks. That's how I hear it in my head now.
Yeah, Ubisoft showed off some games we expected and one game we did not expect. Bethesda brought a Ferris wheel out. So what did you all make of... I thought there was a pretty consistent pattern about these conferences in that they scaled back both major announcements, but they just showed a lot of trailers and a lot of gameplay footage. But there were only a couple like kind of big smash news, and Sony has spent the last couple years like sort of announcing this game that you wanted, we're gonna give it to you, even if we aren't gonna give you a release day. There was a lot less of that this year.
Yeah,
I felt like there was some holding back.
Chris, were you actually in the auditorium for the Sony thing?
For the Sony thing, no. I was tied up at a Microsoft thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I did
only
last year.
Yeah, because like last year we were there and it was just such a weird thing to be crammed up in these seats and looking down on this beautiful, gorgeous stage with like rippling banners playing across it and like performers playing music and stuff. And then
there was an
playing,
orchestra.
Yeah, and there's just a big screen playing trailers the whole time.
And I
kind of wanted to know if
you
it was
just
the
have to
same.
get the orchestra in there and then just watch some trailers.
Yeah,
I'm gonna start creating that ambience for me at home. Like when a new trailer comes out, I'll listen to some orchestra music.
Are you gonna ask your kids? I was gonna say, you're gonna ask your kids to like play their band instruments for you?
Yeah, we can do that.
But like, what do you make of that? Like, on the one hand, like I gather that like the reason you would want to make a big announcement at E3 is you've got the most eyes on it, so you can amplify its reception. On the other hand, it felt to me like there was some holding back. Like everyone, like you said, half these people are running their own events. Microsoft's been doing all these other ways of getting information out about the Xbox One X. Like it sort of feels like there was a little bit of like trying to make a lot out of a little for at least the bigger names. I thought Ubisoft was the only one who gave like sort of a conventional appearance.
Yeah, I think that E3 is just becoming less of like announcement centric, which could be just because now game companies know that they can make their own announcement and that they can do that whenever, and they don't have to screw up like production cycles or anything like that necessarily to do some kind of big reveal and have some game on the show floor, which like, and there were obviously tons of games and demos on the show floor, but I think that E3 is less. There's still a lot of hype around the stuff that happens at E3. Let's not like underestimate that. But it is just like building up, considerably more hype around things that people kind of already know about. So, for example, we knew like all that stuff about Xbox One X outside of a couple very key things, the price and the release date. So E3 is a great place to do that. But other than that, like, were there really like big like news announcements? I think it's lessening every year.
Yeah.
Press conference is getting to be kind of a misnomer with the way E3 things are done, because everything's live streamed now, so it's more just like cutting out the middle and direct to like everybody's watching on Twitch. There's like 300,000 people at least watching it every time I tuned in. So like, I don't know, it's kind of like not so much geared towards that news anymore and just making sure here's the information, here's some flashing lights, and we're going to pump it directly into the brains of the people we want to buy this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I think we can't discount the incredible influence that influencers like YouTube and Twitch are having on the way this convention goes, right? And the way the whole industry goes. Just from like more conferences are moving to the weekend because probably it's a lot easier to get people to tune in and watch your conference because you can now live stream it on a bunch of platforms if you're not doing it during the workday. Also, like, like why save all your big announcements up to this huge extravaganza every year when you can hold your own events anytime you want, and you can get in influencers, you can get in YouTubers, you can get Twitch to stream it on the front page, and get a decent amount of coverage. Like, you are no longer, as a developer, really reliant on the media, especially what you might call like
the independent media.
No, well, I was gonna say, I didn't want to say the mainline media, like Time, USA Today, the people that come out to LA for E3 to take photos and do, the LA Times and stuff, and do a little like spot. I'm like, look at all these crazy video games. Look at the world of video games. That used to be a huge deal in the 90s and 2000s, and now it's like, who cares? Like, that's cool, I guess. So I think that in general is sort of contributing to the way we see E3 kind of diminishing and changing its focus from like a big press event and a big business event to like a big fan event, because fans will pay to come stand in line and buy shirts, and press usually won't, or they won't admit it.
There were a few things I regretted not being there able to buy. I'll be honest. That Moss figurine that you showed me, Chris, that game looks cool.
Oh yeah, that got me. So there was one game that I played from a studio called Polyarch, and it's called Moss. It's they're featuring it on PlayStation VR, but I think it's multi-platform. I could be wrong. But yeah, it's first of all, what Bryant was talking about is my my swag. I got a little figurine that actually got my baggage second screened at the airport when I was leaving LA. So it's a little game that it's almost, if you imagine a single screen type game, like The Room, for example, and it has like these big puzzles, but you also have a little mouse. You have to help guide through these puzzles that kind of remind me of what you have in The Room, that have the intricate handles and things like that. Mm-hmm. But that's shaping up really nicely. If I'm talking about other stuff, I actually got to try. There's one called Sprint Vector that is made by Servios, which made Raw Data, which is a really good horde-based VR game. So Sprint Vector, I was talking to their designer, and we may have a story about it later. But he said that basically, like, we solved locomotion problems and motion sickness in games that move you really fast. Like, we don't have to rely on teleporting in VR because we did it like this. So basically, you're going about a billion miles per hour. I'm watching this on like a big screen, like when people are playing it, and they look like they're on a Nordic track. It's like you're climbing yourself forward. You're like pulling yourself forward over and over again, and then you have like these thumb pads on the Vive controllers, and you just like toss them down, and then you bounce up. So I mean, just describing that is making my stomach turn a little bit.
How long did you last, Chris?
I lasted solid 5 seconds.
Sounds like you did some work.
Respectable.
And I am susceptible to motion sickness, but I don't get motion sick with games like Thumper, even though that moves really fast, or with Rez, or with any any room scale games that that don't move you where your inner ear's not intending you to go. But now I know just to rip off the mask if I have any indication that I could get sick from it. So stuff like that. Yeah, showing VR at E3, it's probably going to be interesting. Hopefully there's a toilet nearby for these VR things.
Now that we've drifted into the actual games and announcements from E3, Alyssa, what was your favorite announcement? What caught your eye? Or what you can be your favorite, or what you thought was most relevant for game developers?
Favorite announcement.
Yeah, I just want to talk about David Cage for like the next half hour. I was glad to see more of Detroit. I didn't catch a lot of announcements because mostly like they all scrolled by. I'm like, here's a bunch of stuff that all launches in like a same 1 month window that I'm not gonna have time to play. But yeah, no, I was happy to see more of Detroit in action outside of that one like hostage negotiation thing they showed last year, and that was playable on the floor, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Oh well,
Well, it was playable if you could sit through a line.
yeah, 3 hour line and
Alex, what caught your eye? What do you do?
I don't. That David Cage game makes me real nervous. I will always play a David Cage game. I think they're really interesting, and they always kind of leave me going like,
Seemed a bit on the nose.
Yeah, and like Detroit seems that studio's most like blatant attempt to be conscious of things like racial tensions and like socioeconomic political
David
divides.
Cage is woke.
Yeah, and I just don't trust that they can really nail that. So I don't. But that probably is to me the most interesting thing to come out of E3 games wise, I guess, because we didn't see a lot of indie stuff, and like that's always stuff I like to see. Is like I like to see developers getting on stage and saying like, "Here's my game. I think it's cool. I think you'll like it." And we saw almost none of that, which was a bummer.
Alyssa, you were going to say something?
Oh no, I saw an interview with David Cage that came out of E3, and they were talking about how like, oh, we're not trying to make a political statement with this. It's like it's not a political game, and I'm like, then meanwhile
Yeah, I'm with Alex on that one.
You have the developer of Wolfenstein. Somebody did an interview on that, and somebody's like, yeah, you get to kill people in this game. He's like, no, you get to kill Nazis, and he's very like zeroed in on the fact that you're assaulting Nazis in this game. And it's weird, the whole climate of that, but that's a whole other thing.
Listen, it is. Oh gosh, now it might not. It's always been okay to kill Nazis, but now it's like some people find it controversial. Mm-hmm. But again, another conversation for another time.
Alex, I'm going to repeat my question about any. Did you have anything beyond? Yeah, no indies, nothing.
Know, like Detroit's
anything notable for developers?
I thought that I don't know that like there wasn't there's almost never a lot for developers at E3, especially not this year. Like usually you'll see some glad handing and like of like a Unity or Unreal representative, and there will be some like nod towards new services, new platforms, but like nobody had that this year. Like Microsoft at least did a little bit of like the hardware and services song and dance, but there was like nothing for developers there. I don't know, like maybe Chris, like maybe there was something great on the floor, maybe there was some awesome booth. I don't know.
Well, I did get to chat with and an interview coming soon on Gamasutra.com. I got to speak with Mike Ibarra, who is the VP of Xbox and Windows gaming at Microsoft, and got to talk to him a little bit about how those two things, Windows gaming and Xbox One, relate to one another. And I'd have to read my interview again to find out if there was anything that really makes sense to me about that. But I think a lot of it, as far I kind of half joke there, but that is an interesting thing to me, and I think to developers too. If you're talking about Xbox One X, they're adopting just like the PC environment. And it's like, why are you pushing the Xbox One? And what is that like? Why? How do these things like exist without competing against one another? And he basically, I mean, his answer is fine. It's just that some people want to play on console, some people want to play on PC, and we want to, even though it is like people who are going to buy an Xbox One X, that's a niche of arguably a niche. They want to have all their bases covered. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see like what happens with the One X. I think that's the only like what Microsoft is doing with the X is pretty much the only option that they have outside of creating crazy hardware like Nintendo does.
I'm going to bounce off of your talking about Xbox to reiterate one announcement that I thought was notable for the success of Xbox in the future. They announced at E3 that they were taking the backwards compatibility of the Xbox One all the way back to the original Xbox. And I said to myself, I sort of had this moment where I shook my head and I was like, oh, so if I buy either an Xbox One, like Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox One X, Xbox,
The Xbox.
I will be purchasing an Xbox that can play all Xbox games. And I think there was some like recent hay made about the fact that like Red Dead Redemption, a bunch of other like backwards compatible games have actually been a huge success. Or like the players are responding and are like actually going back and playing these older games. So I was sort of compelled by the idea that like on the one hand like I'm still missing. There was a image from Reddit going around that was kind of like an Xbox rep resting off the stats, and then someone saying you throw the hat on the frog and you are the frog in reference to Mario Odyssey, and everyone cheering at that. As opposed to so on the one hand, like I think Xbox is still missing the hat on the frog element, if you will. But on the other hand, like that's maybe I think just the fact that there's a device out there that plays a whole generations of games that people own is a really compelling reason to buy an Xbox, and I hope it's part of the reason that if they see any success this winter selling this Xbox, I hope that's a big part of it.
Yeah, it's appealing for like early adopter type, really hardcore audience.
Yeah.
Which that's what exactly who the One X is targeted at. So I don't know. I think that one thing that I pick up, like having met Phil Spencer and talked to him a few times, is that and really even talking to Mike Ibarra. Those executives play a lot of video games, and like for better, for worse, some of these initiatives, the major initiatives, are passion projects for them. You know, to have a console, I'm sure, of course, you have to make the sell like within the company and argue why it makes sense to have people adapt like games from 2003 to a new console, but I really do think that there's an Xbox One X, like partly because Phil Spencer really wants a super powerful console for himself, and he wants to like make that, and he knows that there are other people who are like that, and so I don't know. It's really hard to tell. Like I have no predictions on any of this stuff, but E3, I guess, is the place to talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised they went with a $500 price tag for the new one. After having flown up there and like looked at all their chips and bits and screws and facilities, and like I believe that hardware merits a high price, but I just don't know like how many of those you expect to sell when they cost $500,000. So I don't know. That's a weird, interesting initiative, and I wonder if it's like I just wonder where it puts them in a year, because like the PlayStation execs were doing the rounds last week, getting out there and making sure to say, hey, we sell a lot of PlayStations, like a lot, like not this like 60 million or whatever, we're fine. And so I wonder, like it feels like Microsoft kind of, for whatever reason, passed on an opportunity to make up some of that gap. So I don't know if that's because they don't care and they're just focused on their own personal business, or if they just couldn't take the hit and couldn't afford to sell that for less than $500. I don't know. But
I know that there's a lot of, and like the marketing of it, it just sounds ridiculous when they say over and over again, the most powerful console in history. And it's like, yeah, it is. But like, if you look at the specs and stuff, and like the freaking thing, it's a liquid cooled console. I don't know. So I just think that they went all out, and they know that, the components are going to be coming down, and it's $500 at launch, maybe in a year or something. I don't think it makes that much difference to them whether or not it sells a ton of units right off the bat, but they're positioning themselves for the future this is like the way to, if there's still going to be a console business, which for the foreseeable future appears there will be, this is what Microsoft and PlayStation have to do.
I'm going to pivot away from Microsoft real quick. First, I'm going to say hi to Roman Looks, who just showed up in the chat. And just, if you're watching us at home, feel free to share your E3 thoughts, and we will discuss and debate them. Probably talk about how right you are and how wrong we are. I'm going to take a minute to jump to the Beyond Good and Evil to the return of that game. I didn't expect this. I think a lot of people did not expect this, to the point that IGN's Marty Silva said he would eat his mug if it showed up. I'm being told that that he's actually going to deliver on that promise somehow. It's been a banner year for people promising to eat things, be wrong, and have to eat them. But I actually was more, like, I thought the trailer, like, it caught my eye. It caught what I liked about Beyond Good and Evil. But I noticed a spree of articles yesterday that seemed very unconventional for how games are shown at E3, and so I took a look, and I'm reading I've got Mike Williams' article on usgamer.net up right now, and what's interesting is, so they showed a CGI trailer and said, Beyond Good and Evil is back, it's a prequel, maybe it has something to do with the original game, I don't know, you'll go to space. And then they put out kind of a very marketing-oriented developer diary on YouTube, and then they took reporters backstage and had them play, like, a pre-alpha of this game, like, and they explained a lot of their development process being, instead of sort of this character first process, they sort of went to the other end and literally wanted to build a whole solar system. Like, Beyond Good and Evil is going to be some kind of, like, space exploration game where first they're building the solar system, and then they're trying to procedurally generate, not for every instance of the game, but like sort of like kind of a Dwarf Fortress-y like programming thing is what they talk about in some of these articles. They want to build this galaxy of characters and factions and scenarios that all have like relationships with each other in the environment. And it struck me how at one point in the article they called out to the fact that their marketing trailer explicitly showed like two characters in a room, two characters fleeing a city, two characters flying across a planet, a big ship going to space. Like they deliberately did that as a mechanic that they showed off to reporters backstage. And I thought this was just so different because they took a giant risk on like bringing a game back that I don't think it was a giant commercial success when they came out, and they're going somewhere in the No Man's Sky territory, and they went to reporters and said, here, you're going to get to look at like one of the roughest versions of this before we really show that to the public, but we're going to let you report on it. So I thought that was an interesting, different way of showing a game at E3 that at least gets me like interested in Beyond Good and Evil 2.
I did not play it.
You did not play it, no.
I actually, like, unfortunately during the Ubisoft conference, I need to catch up on a couple of the conferences just because I was running all over the place with meetings and stuff. But I wonder how actually, like, raw that demo really is. Ubisoft putting out, is there still like white boxes in it and stuff?
Not white box raw, no.
Tech demo more than a demo, but
yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's
we lost whatever you thought there, Chris.
Know that there's even if they're. I'm just stating that open development and the concept of that is something that's becoming more and more common, even through the big AAA publishers. So I wouldn't be surprised if stuff like that continues. Yeah,
I think it's sort of going to be interesting if Beyond Good and Evil 2 winds up being early access No Man's Beyond Good and Evil, if you get my drift.
It's in like the same announced category as Shenmue is in my head right now. Kind of that same weird, like, here's the thing, now just wait, and we don't have anything yet, so just hold off. But
Alex is talking, but no, his lips are moving.
Don't worry, it wasn't important. That's fine. No, I heard that Michel Ancel uttered a sob when he came out on stage during the press conference to talk about this game. I was getting lunch, so I was not respecting his emotional output. But I'm glad to see or hear that a developer was excited about the project and emotional and seemed at least very genuine and from the heart about this project, which you're right, Alyssa, has been in the works for, or has been like a thing in the ether for like a generation.
Yeah.
So speaking of Ubisoft, I did get to go to a like a little dinner thing for extremely important press like me.
Yeah, how'd that go?
The appetizers, the hors d'oeuvres were like pretty good. No, they actually had Ubisoft is just they're an interesting company. Like we got a lot of. I know that there's other similar stuff like this that happens in all giant publishers, but it's neat to get the kind of background on stuff. So there's a game, for example, that I had no idea was coming, and it's called Starlink. And there's a subtitle for it, but
can I just say real quick? Do you remember
yeah.
Watch Dogs 2?
Yeah.
I do remember. Yeah.
So I don't know if any of you played this far, but I played this far. There is a mission in that game where you break into a Ubisoft office to steal a trailer for an upcoming game and put it on the internet because you're cool hacker kids, right? That trailer is the trailer for Starlink that we saw this week.
Are you serious?
Shut
I thought
up.
someone
No,
said.
I'm 100% serious. It's Ubisoft's a weird company, but they do some weird, good things.
I'm Googling this as we speak. I want to confirm this fact.
Yeah, so they're showing Starlink, which was apparently teased in Watch Dogs 2, and they were talking about how maybe like 3 years ago or so, Yves Guillemot, who is Ubisoft's CEO, just basically gave the mandate to do whatever you want to like this team, just like or to developers, just and Ubisoft, just like make whatever you want. Make it like mainstream, friendly, and it should have some like kind of interesting like twist to it, like that, it's like kind of like a good gimmick to it. And what came out of that, and I guess that there was like game jam type thing going on, and then you take the stuff that you made and then you're pitching it to see if you could put it into production at Ubisoft. And so the prototype for this game, Starlink, started out as original Wii remote connected like and there's just like a bunch of wires, and it was just like Lego. So that turned into this game, Starlink, where they're going to be collectibles sold separately, I'm sure. So it's toys to life type stuff, but you have a little ship and it connects to your controller via this little connector, and you can just break off the pieces of it, so it's fully modular, and then that is reflected immediately in the game. So it'd be like going around and you run into a situation where, I need a flamethrower on my ship, and then you just like, I bought this flamethrower for it's extremely rare flamethrower for $100 off of eBay. Now this is just like how it could go, and then you connect that, and then boom, you have a flamethrower on your ship in the game, and then like go around. But it's just interesting seeing. I feel like Ubisoft is not afraid to experiment with things. They have the really established stuff, but I can really see in games like Starlink and the things that they're doing in VR. I talked to somebody from Ubisoft, and he was just like, "Yeah, we're still trying to figure out what's fun." That was actually Chris Early, who runs their digital business. He just said like we're still researching. So they're researching via commercial games, just like everyone else in VR is. But whereas all other AAA publishers are mostly taking a step back and a wait and see approach with new technology like VR, Ubisoft has a growing catalog of games. So once VR does become more of a viable market, then they'll be the only ones pretty much ready to go, like on an internal development basis. So yeah, Ubisoft's interesting.
Yeah. I'm just going to clarify one fact. Apparently it was the concept art that you stole in Watch Dogs 2.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So.
That's like a trailer. That's like a non-moving trailer. It's like a still trailer.
That's close enough.
Yeah.
You stole...
Ubisoft is remarkable in that they are the only publisher I know of that has its own internal GDC, because they're so big that they just get people from all their studios around the world to come to one studio for like a week and give talks to each other, and it's weird. It's cool.
That's probably a GDC where the NDAs are a bit looser, so that's probably pretty great.
Yeah, sort of. As long as you're a Ubisoft employee, for sure.
Yeah.
Ubisoft also had like my favorite part of E3 period, which is just like developers crying from being so happy about things. There were like three devs there, so like they ranked the top of all of the shows.
That one guy.
Developers have feelings.
Yeah, that one guy when he saw Miyamoto up on stage playing his game, like announcing his game, he seemed very happy. I felt joy for that man.
Yeah, we should. All right, I think Ubisoft this year was for the first time the most like warm-hearted and like nice that's been in a while. Like they changed hosts. They decided not to go with Aisha Tyler this year, which is kind of a bummer, I think. But like, I remember in E3s I've been to in the past, you go to that theater out a couple blocks from the convention center, and like people are warning you about the dangers of war and the surveillance state, and giving like really sonorous, grim monologues about just like the dangers of whatever.
That sounds like LA.
No, but for like games like The Division and for Watch Dogs 2 and stuff, and Watch Dogs when they announced that this year, it was just very nice. Lots of like held back tears and joy and dancing, and it's just a fun time.
Although they gave Mario a gun. I mean, it's an arm cannon, but
yeah, it's great. Mario's strapped. The Mushroom Kingdom got heat.
We need to talk about Nintendo here a little bit too. I think we've gone this whole time. Like I mainly know of the press conference just through. I've digested it almost purely through GIFs on Twitter, and they all have to do with the hat being thrown on something. I like that a lot.
That's just I'm interested. I'm like. On the one hand, I want to like share a thoughtful thought about how Nintendo is approaching big Switch games with this kind of like systems-driven approach of trying to make sure the player can like have something happen when they interact with almost everything on screen. On the other hand, I just want to talk about how great it is when you throw the hat on like a dinosaur, and you're the dinosaur, and you throw the hat on the spark, and you're the spark flying down the wire. And like on the one hand, that's cool. Like they've made something, like they've taken all the behaviors associated with those objects and make sure the player can use them. That's no mean feat. But I'm still also just like, it's just so great. Like you become the frog.
Yeah, I've been thinking like how to explain this in the Mushroom Kingdom lore, and like I know they're getting out there with their official, like they're making up reasons for why it is. There's a ghost or something, I don't know, but like. As far as I can tell, like Mario, the man who was Mario died a long time ago, and what Mario is now is like a cloud of sentient spores that comes from the Mushroom Kingdom and can just infect anything. Right?
Is that canon? Like what you're describing right now?
This is fan fiction.
But here's the thing: the cloud of sentient spores must feed through some kind of mustache. So whatever it takes over, it has to have a mustache, or else they'll die. That's what I think.
Lost Alyssa there. Yeah.
So yeah, what did you think, Bryant, about the old Nintendo the Nintendo conference?
The Metroid Prime 4 announcement only I think reinforced something you said a couple weeks ago when we were talking about like why Nintendo is doing switching by a couple weeks, maybe a couple months. Like I felt like Metroid got put on ice there for a bit, got hit by an ice beam, if you will, because it wasn't a concept that had any kind of translation to a broader audience. Like its origins were like in a genre known for being, if not very difficult, at least a little difficult. It wasn't any time it got bigger or Nintendo is not exactly known to like tell deep and enriching sci-fi stories, and given that the last one when they outsourced that to another development studio sort of tried to do that and fell flat on its face, they didn't seem too excited to go back again. But the fact I think like we've talked about what the Switch would need to win, and I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be, in the long run, I think it's if they do it right, this is contingent on it has to be good, and it probably has to deliver that sort of Metroid in a way you haven't seen it before. That we've gotten with Zelda and Mario this year. I think Nintendo is, like you said, interested in the Switch being for people who play games a lot, and that's why they're confident enough to bring the genre back, or to bring the series back for 2 different titles. Because then they announced on the Treehouse right afterward that 2D Metroid is going to be coming to the 3DS very soon. This is a sudden confidence in a series that everyone had thought they'd relegated to that weird Federation Force spinoff.
Yeah. I wonder if Samus will be able to throw her helmet on things and then possess them.
Yep.
I would say
you are the Metroid.
I would not be surprised if the trend continues that that they try to build some broad something. There's a trend in Zelda to Mario that I would not be surprised that they would funnel the resources into Metroid to make sure it's a smash hit. Some kind of similar broad systems driven approach to it, which is not something I think you can say. Every game is systems driven to some extent. This is why
I know what you mean though, but that they have certain things react in expected ways with one another.
Yeah,
certain objects. Yeah.
More interactive than just what your beam does to things, than what your gun does to things.
It's usually generate planets.
Yeah. Build your own morph ball tunnel, I think.
Can I just give a mea culpa as we sort of wind this down? I feel really embarrassed. Earlier, I was bemoaning the lack of indies in any of the big press conferences, and there was one press conference that had a decent indie showing, and that was the PC gaming show that I didn't watch. I didn't have time to watch. I don't know if anyone has had time to watch it yet. There was a lot of press conferences, but I will go back and watch it because I heard, for better and for worse, there were a number of indie games there that were showed off at length, and the developers got to come on stage and talk about them. And BattleTech sounds rad, so good on that show for trying to figure out how to be a non-publisher. I think Microsoft helps them, but they're not a publisher-centric show, and they're trying to carve out a space in the E3 landscape.
Yeah, I appreciate that it wasn't I don't mind sitting there and watching trailers on Twitch or something, but I kind of do mind when you fly out to Los Angeles and you sit there and just watch trailers for an hour or something. I think it's an okay, it's an okay format. I guess my point is the PC gaming show. I don't know. It is what it is. But it's actually somebody sitting down and talking to developers, and I appreciate that. So makes you feel like you kind of get some kind of insight out of it.
It's kind of grown in its own because it was 2 years ago it started. I think I had to do a new shift for whoever I was with at that point in time, and I had sat down for an hour and watched that show, and I didn't write a single story because they're just there wasn't a lot of substance to it at that point, but they've really grown into their own where there's interesting things going on. There were some interesting, I think Cliffy B was up there talking about his game. There was a bunch of interesting just conversations going on that you didn't really get in any of the other press conferences. So
even to a point, I have to bring up sort of the controversy of E3, but it's where the Last Night developer dropped on stage to make an apology for his Twitter accounts or his Twitter statements from 2014. That if nothing else, there's again, that's a whole other show and a whole other conversation about that developer's behavior. But if nothing else, to mark that stream that they chose to attempt to make their own mea culpa there was interesting. I had noted in my article that I was surprised. Finji has now made this one of their big debut places for E3 2 years in a row. So it really seems to be a decent platform if you're a mid-sized company to get your game out there.
Yeah,
totally.
So there you go. We do have some more E3 stuff coming up.
Yeah. What kind of thing you've mentioned about a bunch of your interviews, Chris? But if developers want to know what they should be knowing, what should they look forward to?
Yeah. Go to gamasutra.com/E3 2017, and you will see all of our E3 coverage, including exclusive interviews and coverage.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it is coming down to the end of the hour again. I will, before we go, give a shout out to Joey in the chat who just wants to say hi. Thank you, Joey, for following us.
Thanks, Joey.
You have been watching the and the Coder Pig swung by. Hi, Coder Pig. You have been watching the Gamasutra Twitch channel. I am Brian Francis, contributing editor at Gamasutra, and this has been Chris, Alex, and Alyssa. Yeah, we have been talking about E3. We're going to don't worry, Coder Pig. We're going to get a video on demand of this, get a video version of this up on Gamasutra.com in just a few minutes. So you'll be able to watch the whole thing if you just came in. If you want to get more developer interviews and hear more about when we want to comment on the news, please be sure to follow the Gamasutra Twitch channel. We would appreciate if you scroll down and click that follow button. And if you, as Chris said, if you want more E3 news and what you need to know to talk with other game developers and games business people about E3, just follow the E3 page that we've set up on Gamasutra.com. And that's about it for today. Thank you so much to everyone for joining me.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, video games.